Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. This is one of the most exciting nights in Polish politics for a long time, because tonight we have finally received the initial exit poll results for the second round of the Polish presidential elections in 2020, and it is very close. Andrzej Duda is at 50.4%, whereas Rafał Trzaskowski is at 49.6%. So there's only a 0.8% margin between them. Now, why is this so significant? There were many irregularities reported when it comes to access and receiving of voting packages for our citizens living abroad. Roughly 500,000 citizens have registered to participate in the elections this year, and contrary to previous years, they were not able to cast their votes in the embassies, but they had to receive a voting package, a few documents that they had to sign, and where they also had to mark which of the presidential candidates they would support, and then they had to send it back to the embassy, and only the votes, only the packages returned to the embassies on time until today would be counted. So if there was a sufficient number of people who had a hard time, or specifically speaking, who were deprived of their right, of their constitutional right to vote. So if there was enough people like that, if this number was sufficiently high, it would mean that those people could have swung the elections, right? Because we have a voter turnout of roughly 21 million, or 70% of the ones who were eligible to participate in the voting tonight, in the voting today. So 1% is roughly 210,000, and the difference is only 0.8%, which means that if, let's say, 100,000 of our citizens abroad were deprived of their constitutional right to participate in these elections, they could have changed the results of the elections completely. With such a small margin, it is impossible to call the election. It is impossible to be certain who has actually won the election. And given so many people were deprived of their rights, and so many people had no way of actually participating in the election, voting in the election, although they expressed their interest to do so, we shall see a lot of voter protests. And those voter protests will be examined by the Supreme Court, who will then decide whether today's elections were constitutional, were legal or not. If not, the Supreme Court will have the right to order another election to be held. So the Supreme Court will have the right to order another presidential election to be held in Poland if they decide that the margin is too small, that there were too many irregularities, and that those irregularities could have impacted the outcome of today's vote, of today's elections. My conclusion for now is that we should see how the day and how events will unfold. We need to watch this margin very closely. We need to vote for initial results from some of the voting stations that actually will be ready with counting. And we need to look closely at how this margin will develop. If it will be as close, if it maybe gets closer, then there will be for sure a lot of voting protests, a lot of voter protests, and those people will possibly cause the Supreme Court to decide that these elections need to be repeated. So we cannot even be sure today that this was the last attempt of holding a presidential election in Poland in 2020. This promises to be a very interesting, very exciting time, and we will definitely make sure that you will be up to date with any important developments in this area. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, just to recap, Andrzej Duda 50.4%, Rafał Trzaskowski 49.6%, but we do not even know if this is the last time Poland tried to have